Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of the North Stand and our Varsity special. On today's show, we take a look at the latest sporting news from around the region and get the thoughts of our guest panel ahead of this weekend's sporting action. We also have the latest news from the WEAT's Varsity, which took place at Sunderland University earlier this week. But we start with the latest news from around the North East. Life at the Stadium of Light continued to get worse as the Black Cats suffered yet another defeat, this time going down 2-0 to Preston North End. Little separated the sides at half-time, but Alex Neil's men stepped it up in the second 45 as in-form striker Sean Maguire headed home a free kick. Callum Robinson headed the second for Preston to leave Wearside with all 3 points. Sunderland remain bottom of the championship and time is running out to remain in the division. Middlesbrough continued their fine form under Tony Pulis as Adama Traore bagged another superb goal to extend their unbeaten run. Despite many chances for Borough, Brentford held on for the draw. They now sit in 6th place with 63 points, 8 games to go. And finally, Stockton Town were victorious in the first leg of the FA Vars with a victory over Marsk United. In snowy conditions, Stockton took the lead following an own goal, followed by a tidy finish from Fred Woodhouse. Marsk were the dominant side throughout, but thanks to Stockton's keeper Michael Arthur, Stockton go into the second leg with a 2-goal advantage. And that is all we have time for on today's North Stand news. Now we head to Tommy Longworth for today's discussion.
Welcome back to the North Stand with me, Tommy Longworth. Panel time now with our guests this week, Callum, George Crabb and Luke Beaumont. Let's start off looking back at this weekend's results. First up, Middlesbrough. Borough earned a point away at Brentford with a 1-1 draw. Adama Traore with another goal. Callum, Borough fan yourself, what do you make of the performance?
I'll happily take the point. Brentford's a difficult place to play, a narrow pitch where we like to play wide, and they battered us, and to come on with a point, take that. What's that? 3 wins and a draw. We've extended unbeaten run. Not if we can carry on that.
2 points drop, 1 point gain, Joe.
Oh, definitely a point gain. You know, I know they're not immediately behind us, but to get a point away at any playoff rival, you know, in that higher mid-table region is a decent point in my opinion. Especially, you know, when historically we've like sort of, I know we've been good there historically, but it's still a good point in my opinion. It really is.
I think it's two points dropped, to be honest with you. I think they could have done with the 3 points because obviously they've got Wolves next. And it's not a bad result because it keeps them in the top 6, but going into a Wolves game where I don't think they'll get anything, they could have done with the win, really.
It's extremely tight in that kind of playoff areas, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's only a few points that kind of separate it. Do you think it'll do it, Callum?
I think we can. I think Wolves have dropped off a little bit. They have a few games they've lost. We're going to be at home where we've been playing well. It's a pitch we're used to, wide. We're going to get the crosses in. Bamford's got more space to run into. I think we can nick something off Wolves. And look at the teams after that, we can beat them. And we can. I think instead of battling for 6, we've got to look at the 4th, 5th, because we don't want to play Villa, and they've definitely got 3rd, in my opinion.
Moving on to the side now, another defeat this time, 2-0 home at Brentford, for another man sent off for the Black Cats. I know things are bad, but just how bad are they, Callum?
It's terrible. Rock bottom of the table, no fans showing up. I think they need the fans to push them. They had the fans when they played us. They nicked a point last minute. I think if they've got them fans and be the 12th man, they can help that team. But the way it's going, I don't think they've got a chance staying up.
Yeah, Joe, I mean, the stadium's just getting empty and empty every kind of week, you know.
Yeah, it's sad to see a club of that size, to be honest. You know, as much as they are Borough's rivals, and you know, to see a club of that stature struggling like they are, it's really bad. They're only going one way at the minute, aren't they, under the current owners. They need someone to come and save them, and fast. Just
how bad would actually relegation League One mean, Luke?
It'd be a nightmare for them. I don't know how they're going to cope going forward, like how they're going to survive going into League One with a massive stadium. We're going to have, 20,000-30,000 empty seats every week. And financially, I don't know how it's going to work.
Incidentally, actually, it was a Newcastle fan half-time. Don't know if you've kind of seen when the kind of half-time challenge went round doing a Shearer.
That just sums up the club situation at the moment.
Just made it worse.
Even Newcastle fans just going to the stadium, rubbing it in, and doing Shearer celebrations, running around, doing that.
Tough times in Sunderland anyway. Anyway, moving on to National League, where Hartlepool launched a stunning fight back at Field to earn a 3-3 draw. Pool's 3-1 down with 2 minutes to play. Devante Rodney for a kind of 93rd minute equaliser. Sure, that would have felt like 3 points.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like when you're getting beat and you come back and you're away, it's a great feeling, especially travelling home because you haven't got a feeling of losing. I thought they were going to nick something. They got lucky with an own goal earlier on to go 1-0 up. I thought that might give them a boost. obviously never went to wait for 2 more goals to concede. And then they managed to get 2 great goals, and hopefully, I want to see Pools do well, and hopefully they can motivate from this. They've seen it, they've got a fight in them if they've got the 2 late goals, so hopefully that fight can keep them up.
Joe, 3 points above the drop, can they afford double relegation or not?
Financially, you would say no, but you know, I think they can still stay up. You know, they've got a strong base there. It just needs that sort of backroom area needs sorting out, because the players on the pitch are good enough to stay in that league without a doubt. You know, proved it. Filed are right up there, and they fought back and got a point against them. So if you can get a point against them, they can get a point against anyone, and that's all they need to sort of keep above that relegation zone at the minute. Just keep pulling away from it a little bit at a time.
I think they'll stay up. It's nice to see that, like, obviously with the off-field problems, it's nice to see the players have still got the fight in them. So yeah, I think they'll stay up.
Next up, Bromley at home, chance to pick up 3 points, lads, definitely.
A chance,
At home, they've got a chance.
Yeah.
You know, you're seeing how good the fans have been raising money, and they're backing that team. It's just unfortunately they've had problems in the staff area. They've got Matty Bates, Paul Jenkins, who are local lads, and they'll have the fight in them. They'll pass it on to the players. As long as the fans are there, they've got a good chance.
Predictions for Hartlepool against Bromley?
I'll go Hartlepool nick a 1-0 win.
Joe?
1-1.
Luke?
I've got 2-1 Hartlepool.
Great. Moving on to Heed, where they lost the first leg of their FA Trophy semi-final away at Bromley, incidentally. The Heed will surely have to make most of the things at home when they play each other again this weekend. What's it going to be like this weekend, Callum?
It's fair. You've lost, but it's 3-2 away. It's not they've fought that into that game. They might not have deserved to lose, but coming at home, thinking it's a pretty even game, and with the home advantage, they could nick that. They've got a good chance of going through.
So what does it mean for a club like Gateshead, Joe, to make Wembley?
It'd be massive for them, wouldn't it? Let's not as much as every club in that league, you know, wants to get out of it and go into League Two. To get to Wembley, it's a massive thing for any club. I don't care who you are. It's a massive thing, and to get the financial repercussions from that as well, it'd be brilliant. You know, and it just makes them stronger on and off the field, and just pulls you further away from the problems that Hartlepool have got, doesn't it? It can only be positive.
Look, as a Huddersfield fan, you've been at Wembley before. Just what's it like?
It's unbelievable. Like, every fan in football dreams of going to Wembley, and whether it's a Championship player final or an FA Trophy final, it means the same. Like, it doesn't matter. But yeah, going there and winning, it's the best feeling in football, and hopefully Gateshead can go and do that.
Excellent. Moving on to National League North, where Darlington hit bottom of the league, North Ferriby for 6. What does that win mean for Darlo?
It's a great win. That just shows how good Darlo are. They haven't had the best of the season. Obviously, they could have gone up last year. They didn't, and they've had a bit of a poor season. But they definitely weren't going to go down. You could say beat a team just below them, 6-0. It shows the quality they've got. Really, they just need to build on this now. The manager's got to be looking. These are the players I want to keep. As long as them players are doing well, I know they've got a place in that squad next year. Because the managers obviously want to build and get promoted. So I think it's a good sign coming from Darlo.
The Quakers are just 2 points off the playoff places, but my teams around them have got kind of games in hand. It's interesting stuff, isn't it, Joe?
Yeah, well, I remember I was doing a report on them a few weeks back, and they were relegation threatened. You know, they were right down there, and another defeat could have put them right in trouble. But they managed to pull themselves away from it, and you know, maybe get that playoff push going. And you know, anything can happen in football. You could see them sneaking them playoffs, and then you know, once you're in the playoffs, it's a lottery. It's one of 4 teams, isn't it? Everyone's got the same chance.
Things looking bright, aren't they, Luke?
Yeah, I don't think they'll get playoffs, but if they play with no limits, then they can get there. But well, no, they can give themselves a chance, but I don't think they should expect to get there. You know what I mean? But just play with, you know, just give yourself a chance.
Next up for Darlo, relegation zone, Telford away from home, shy 3 points.
Yeah, another 5-0 win, I think.
Well, yeah, after battering Ferriby, you would assume that they could get the 3 points there.
Yeah, they'll get back-to-back wins.
Predictions for this lad, Telford against?
We'll go 5-0.
5-0.
3-2.
1-0.
1-0. Thanks to all our guests today for the discussion. Now back to Sam in the studio.
Now, this week was a Teeswee Varsity, which once again proved to be a good contest between our very own Teesside University and neighbours Sunderland University. Our reporters crossed the Weymouth Bridge to get all the action.
Teesside Women's first team were comfortable victors over Sunderland in an 11-1 thrashing, which saw Borough ladies and Teesside striker Bianca Owen score 7 goals in what will be remembered as a remarkable varsity victory. Fellow student media outlet The Undergrad spoke to Bianca after the game.
It was good, yeah. It's always good to beat Sunderland there, like our derby, so it's always good to get a win, especially in varsity, because we're a few teams down today, aren't we? So we knew we had to win. In terms of the women's football team, I think over the past couple of years, it's just got significantly better. So players coming in and stuff, they're not just coming to Teesside for the social. They are coming to play competitive football. We've just been promoted. We are a good side. We've probably won every game in the league this year by double figures. So they are coming into a good standard.
On the back of a disappointing 5th place Brooks finish, the Teesside ladies hockey team rounded their season off with a brutal 8-0 thrashing to rivals Sunderland.
The Teesside men's first team came away with a thrilling 6-5 win in this year's Tees Weir Varsity. After going behind early, Teesside dominated the first half, scoring 3 unanswered goals to lead 3-1 at the break. After some more Teesside brilliance, they led 6-5 going into the last quarter of the game. However, Sunderland rallied, putting it back to 6-5 with just a few minutes to go. Sunderland had a chance to level at the death, but a header was brilliantly cleared off the line by a Teesside defender and they held on. After the game, the North Stand spoke to the Teesside men's captain to get his thoughts on the Tees Weir Varsity victory.
So good performance there. Obviously happy with the win after a successful season for you.
Yeah, lads played well. Obviously difficult today with conditions, windy and that. So the gaffer just said keep the ball on the deck. After the first 10, we probably didn't do that. The ball was going a lot, losing possession. They probably dominated the first 10, but as soon as we got a grip to it, knocking it about on the floor, lads played well, and obviously we took it into a 3-1 lead.
Yeah, like you say, you struggled the first 10, but after that you really settled into it. Do you think it could have been more comfortable for you?
Yeah, I think so. I think, to be honest, we're a better football inside, I would say. Even from the outset there, just went for the long ball. So as soon as we got a grip to it, we got the ball, it was out there, comfort zone. We play on this every week. We've got a 4G back at Teesside Uni, so it suits us down the ground, yeah.
So what's your targets for next year then, going into next season?
I think for the first team, we've got to push for the title. We finished second this season. A lot of young lads in, a lot of freshers, and we just build on that and try and push for promotion.
Going into Wednesday's varsity match, the 2 tier third teams had a largely unsuccessful year, Teesside finishing second bottom and Sunderland bottom of the table. And it was a tight affair, with the scores tied heading into the fourth quarter. But a Nemeth Foster inspired fourth quarter led the Teesside Thurs to a 35-29 win. Elsewhere in netball, the Teesside second team won 33-29 and the first team won 44-40 on a very successful afternoon for Teesside netball.
How this weekend's international break, we now preview the England games against Holland and Italy. Lads, let's look at the squad that Gareth Southate's picked. What do you make of it, Callum?
It's an interesting squad. A lot of new faces and a lot of old faces who shouldn't be in the squad, just like Danny Welbeck. He's hasn't been good at all this season. He's been out with a lot of injury, and I think we should have had a striker like Glenn Murray, who's in form. He's a different striker. You got Welbeck, who's kind of like a Rashford who likes to peel off the defenders. But when you got a player like Glenn Murray, you can from crosses from Ashley Young. Chamberlain's got a good cross on him. Getting crosses into Glenn Murray, he's going to score your goals. It's like we took Andy Carroll to the Euros. Quality in the air, he's got his goals. I don't think Welbeck should be in the squad.
Who would you have in instead?
Glenn Murray.
Glenn Murray, definitely.
Yeah.
Karis, I'm looking, seeing Alan Lorna on that list. What do you make of that?
Well, he gets a lot of criticism because he hasn't been particularly well this season, but he has been plagued with injuries. And I think when you look at players who can replace him, like Shelby or someone like that, I think I'd still probably rather have Lorna. He's got that creative ability, he has got that flair. I just think if he took him to the Euros, he definitely would bring something different to the table. He's a dynamic player. He can play hold midfield or he can go central attacking. So I have no problem with Lallana. A bit of a question about taking 4 goalkeepers. I'm not really sure. I mean, I don't think Hart should be involved at all, really. He's been so poor this season for West Ham. And really, really poor. And I don't see why he's been called up other than he's got the name Joe Hart, to be honest. But I have no problem with Lallana. I think it's an alright decision.
Jake, I'm looking and there's no kind of North East representatives in there. Who would you kind of think? Would Shelby hard done by? Lascelles hard done by?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you say, Lascelles and Shelby. Definitely have Shelby over Lallana. It's all about picking players on form. And for me, Shelby's been much better than Lallana. You know, Henderson again, he's another one. You look at him and think, what's he doing now? He's been poor for Liverpool.
He's been poor for England as well.
Yeah. But then Lascelles was saying last week he should be an over Mawson, and he should. You know, he's much better. He contributes so much more to Newcastle.
Gets goals, doesn't
he? He gets goals as well.
Yeah,
you know,
he's done very well.
He's been so important for Newcastle this season. Without him, you know, I genuinely think you'd be in that relegation zone.
Going into these games against Holland and Italy, are you confident with that squad? Do you think we can get anything?
I think we're just going to experiment. We're playing against two tough teams who haven't qualified for the World Cup. Be interesting to see who they have got in their teams as well. So I think it's going to be pretty even. Italy and Holland aren't the teams what they used to be. And I think we'll put up a good competition against us. It's going to be interesting games.
I think it'll be probably same old England though. Like, we'll probably do quite well in these friendlies. But again, is that us playing well, or is it the other teams fielding a side that perhaps isn't as strong? Like when we beat Germany at Germany, all England were banging on about it, saying, "Oh, we're going to do great at the Euros," but really they weren't playing a good team. So it all depends how they play as well. But I mean, they've got nothing to play for, so hopefully they'll put out a strong side and give us a test and see what we're like before we go to the World Cup.
Jake, Ashley Young, banging form, before he deserved a call up.
Yeah, I think he deserves it. But personally, I think our problem now is looking at that left back spot. I think Danny Rose has been quite poor this season. You know, I think maybe that was because of all the transfer talk at the start of the season. Then he got injured. Then he struggled to get back in the Tottenham squad over Davis. And Young, fair play to him. He's got back in that United squad and is playing well.
He's playing out of position as well.
Yeah, you know, it's
and he's made that he's on now.
Yeah.
Same with Elf. He's been injury prone. He's come back and he's still made that position his own. So,
but the problem is, it's still you're looking at a player who's played as a winger the majority of his career. You know, then you want to put him in at left back in like the biggest stage, like the biggest competition in the world. You know, we might get a bit exposed there. So you know, it's one of them.
It's interesting stuff. You know, you're looking at the kind of the big teams like Man City and you know what I mean. Looking at Man United as well, and left back seems to be the position where they all struggle and always kind of make a makeshift centre midfielder is a left back, and so happens that one of the Ash Young's on there today as well. Any kind of other interesting thoughts?
I'm glad Nick Pope's in the squad. He's been unbelievable for Burnley. It's unlucky Tom Heaton got injured and he's took that spot himself. He's what was he in the Championship a couple of years ago, got relegated with Charlton, and now he's at Burnley. People thought, why they're buying him? Like, he's just been relegated to League One, but he's just showing his qualities, and he fully deserves it. And I hope he starts because Joe Hart's been poor. Jack Butland obviously hasn't got the best team in front of him as Stoke. He's conceded a lot of goals. I'm not saying he's poor, but Pope, he's been quality. Next season he could be in the Europa League with Burnley, and I think he's going to be the next big thing in England.
Karis, anyone you think hard done by generally, not getting picked?
Maybe Glenn Murray, like we said earlier, he's playing on form. Like Southgate said, he picked the squad on form and he's been banging the goals and he's not been called up. And you thought with Harry Kane being injured, he might have got a call up, but instead we're seeing familiar faces like Danny Welbeck. He should feel hard done by, and he's probably wondering what he's got to do to get in this squad. I mean, a lot of people are questioning Rashford as well, but I think he is someone we need in that squad, a young talent who will just drive forward. But yeah, definitely Glenn Murray. I will say that the top, like Dele Alli, Lingard, Sterling, without Kane, that's got to, if we want to win these two matches, they've got to be like the main players. They've got to be the key influencers in the game. So I think that's probably what we have to look forward to.
Jake, I mean, Jake Livermore's a name that kind of recent kind of international squad list has been on there, and a lot of people have been, saying he shouldn't. Do you believe that?
It's one of them because you look at it and you think, who do we really have that else can play that deep defensive role? I mean, it's again England's problem. I think in recent years has been that centre midfield. You've got Oxlade-Chamberlain. You know what? I'd throw him in centre mid now because he's been playing his best football at Liverpool in that position. And you probably would have to play Livermore next to him. But by doing that, you can drop someone like Henderson. And personally, I'd be looking to get Leon Bailly in from Leverkusen. There's talk that he can switch his nationality to English from Jamaican. If you get him in, then you've got a front four of Bailly, Sterling, Kane, and Ali for the World Cup. And going forwards, that is very good. But then you've just got to rely on that midfield behind you to pull its weight, And you just got to Oxlade-Chamberlain, because, you know, he's so energetic, you know, he's so quick as well and good on the ball. Drives you forward, but then someone like Livermore, like you say, we are lacking that always, like, you know,
We haven't got the leaders anymore.
Kind of that player, but he's too old now to get up.
We just feel like we've only got one player like that, and that's Dyer. We haven't really got another defensive midfielder who stands out.
Yeah.
So
we've got no leaders in that midfield either. As soon as Gerrard, Lampard, Carrick, Scholes, yeah, they're all captain their club.
So we've got
and
leaders.
none of the leaders are there, in my
The only
opinion.
player on there I think could be a leader is, well, you would have said Joab, but not really now. He's completely lost it. John Stones could be a leader, but he's really young. There's no one there with experience.
Lewis
who
Cook,
stands
he's
out.
been captain under 21s. He's obviously not going to captain
He'll not,
over,
yeah.
but he's got that leadership qualities.
Wilshire's been captain,
Arsenal,
you just don't look at anyone who's had loads of experience there and just go a straight out captain for England.
You look at it and you think that there's no kind of names that we were saying before as Gerrard, Lampard, John Terry.
Like the Beckhams,
So
the
it means
big
we're going to
names.
have to rely on the youth. Do you know what I mean? The youth going forward and someone filling up them boots. But I don't know. I couldn't.
It just all depends on how we set up, because when you think of it, you know, just seeing there Jack Wilshere again, he is England's best midfielder. I think when he's injury free, he's England's best.
Yeah.
And you need to hope he carries on this run of games he's getting at Arsenal and doesn't pick up any more knocks. Because if he does, then, you know, you're just going to struggle, because Wilshere he's a good link up, and you could have Oxlade-Chamberlain and Wilshere, or Chamberlain and Livermore, or Dyer and all that. But, you know, when you have Wilshere in there, and if he can get himself fit, I think a lot of it will depend on how well he actually plays and how well he can do with Arsenal at the moment.
That's great stuff. I mean, we could sit here and debate for days on end, but unfortunately that's all I have time for in this week's discussion. Big thanks to our guests Callum Weller, Joe Usher, Luke Beaumont, Karis Noble and Jake Self. Now back to Sam Blacklock in the studio.
And that's all we have time for on today's episode of The North Stand. Thanks for joining us. See you same time, same place next term.